Good morning. My name is Jack Miner. I'm the Chief Investment Officer with TEDCO, and we make direct investments on behalf of the state of Maryland. And welcome, Josh Makower. Great to have you here, and want to hear a lot about what you've got going on. In fairness to you, though, last time you and I talked seems like a lifetime ago because it was pre-pandemic. It was in your offices in California. And the reason why I thought that your office looked a lot like your NEA office was because I thought it was really cool, all the little devices that you had and the gadgets as they went through FDA approval. Just, you know, a really, really long and admirable history in medical device innovation and investment. And so, you know, I think, you know, so let me, in fairness to you, let me just start with what I'm up to, because, you know, we are doing some interesting things, in my opinion, at TEDCO. So last time you and I chatted, I was with Cleveland Clinic. I was coming to you and saying, hey, we've got these devices, you know, as an investor, what do you think? You know, is this a big deal? Is this bigger than a bread box or not? You know, where are we with this? And, you know, NEA has been hugely helpful, not only yourself, but other partners there that have been very, very helpful to me at Cleveland Clinic. And then prior to that at University of Michigan, and really trying to sort out, you know, what's the trajectory, whether it's from a technology roadmap or whether it is an investment path. So I wanted to catch up with you on that because of what we're doing at TEDCO. Like I said, we're making direct investments on behalf of the state of Maryland. We've got 3 different funds. One is a social impact fund, the other is seed, and the third is venture. And we're always looking for input, even though you might be 3 time zones away. You know, are we headed the right way? So some of the questions I've got for you as we go through this are, you know, are we, you know, what can we do to be helpful to you in California, and talk about the 3 things that you're working on, at least 3 things. You know, what impact can we have, you know, together in healthcare? So with that, last time I talked with you, you were wearing a couple hats. You've taken another hat as well. And I think that you are probably doing 2 or 3 conversations a week, talking about all those things. And at first glance, I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is such a departure from what you've had, but they're so really well integrated, I think.
Yeah.
And so I want you to talk about, you know, what you're doing, not only new with Stanford, but also with NEA and ExploraMed. So that was the longest, most bland introduction probably had, but you know, so tell us what's going on with the new role at Stanford, as well as how that works with NEA and ExploraMed.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this, and good to see you again. And looking forward to working with you in this new capacity. Yeah, this is you know, sort of a continuation of the 3-ring circus that is my life. But you're right that there are 3 rings that overlap quite substantially. And you know, my relationship with these organizations goes back you know, 20 plus years, in the case of NEA, almost 30 years. And so and ExploraMed as well. You know, so the threads of these things began with my relationship with NEA that started back in 1995, where I was a entrepreneur in residence, where I created the incubator ExploraMed, and subsequently, you know, with NEA as my partner, created a number of medical device companies and also health tech companies over the years. And then about a little over 20 years ago, teamed up with Paul Yock here at Stanford to use the method to basically teach the methodology that we were using at ExploraMed, and that I developed back even before ExploraMed at Pfizer, to translate that into an academic environment. And so we created Stanford Biodesign back then. And Paul.
So that actually had its genesis at ExploraMed. The
right. Yeah.
Biodesign. Okay.
Yeah. The methodology, which is sort of I'd say the central axis of the program, the innovation aspect of it, teaching innovation. This is a passion of mine, just breaking up things that seem complex into very small, easily achievable steps, so that other people can do it, and also so that I can do it.
Yeah. Well,
Because I can't do complex things, I can only do simple things. So I like simple steps to just follow, like a recipe book.
it's really well respected probably worldwide. I know every institution I've been in at Michigan, the Coulter program followed it pretty closely. At Cleveland Clinic, everyone within the Lerner Research Institute followed it as well. So I mean, it's very, very well respected, and I think it deconstructs a very complex problem in innovation. So kudos. Not that you need it from me, but yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's, you have to, the main mission, my main life mission is to improve the quality of life of human beings on the planet. And one can do that by directly innovating and being an inventor or what have you, innovator them yourself, as I try to be, but also trying to make it a process that others can do and teach those, because have greater reach, and those folks will come up with their own inventions and solutions to problems that'll just help more people. So that's sort of the big mission, and it's thrilling now at this point, to come in. Paul is retiring, but I'm hoping to hold on to Paul Yock as long as he's willing to stick around. But to lead biodesign into the next next 20 years, and so that's an exciting opportunity. Still connected to NEA. I'm a special partner there. Stepped down as a general partner a week ago to do this. So that allows me to continue to engage with the venture firm that really is my greatest partner and long-term relationship that I've had in the venture business. So I can still participate in the investment decisions, and obviously continue to support my companies that are all still NEA portfolio companies that I invested in while being an investing partner there, and also continue at ExploraMed to practice the innovation practice myself with my collaborators at Bright and others at ExploraMed, because I think if you're going to teach something, it's really important to actually be doing it too.
Sure.
And I actually love it. I mean, that is my passion. I do find it fun, and it's thrilling and really rewarding. So I'd never want to give that up. So
I have to throw in a tangent on this as well, because when I was prepping for this, I found that you had a notebook from when you were 7 years old from the $6 Million Man. And, I mean, so some people, when you're interviewing people and you say, this is a real passion, this is something that I want.
Yeah.
You've done this since you were 7. I mean, you kind of mapped out the brain and the,
I know,
how things,
right.
but I mean, so it really does underscore that it is a passion of yours. And so, and it's cliche, but it's not like work when you're doing something that you love so much, and making healthcare, accessible and better for everybody. But so, you're walking the walk for sure on that. And, with healthcare being almost 18% of the US GDP, and I saw yesterday where some of the bills that we're proposing, some of the ways that we're going to pay for those is a reduction in healthcare. Well, if it's 18% of GDP, we can get there. So all the more importance in things like ExploraMed. Yeah. And so the question I've got around ExploraMed is, where does the initial funding come from for those ideas? Yeah. That's a big challenge for us here. TEDCO leads the way in a couple different areas in our seed funding and our programs with Johns Hopkins and University of Maryland. But, in an incubator like, or an accelerator like ExploraMed, where do those initial dollars come from? Yeah. And that's sort of the structure. You're hitting on some of the key aspects of the structure of ExploraMed. It comes up front. I mean, but it's not a lot of dollars in the big picture. Our first ExploraMed
we raised like $850,000. The second one, I think, was $4 million. And it's never gotten really higher than $8 million. And out of that 8 million, we create at least two new companies, but we search through, we search for months and months, sometimes years, to find them, to find the right one. But we use essentially what we call the biodesign process. I mean, I literally do, we say, hey, what's a big opportunity? Let's look at, I don't know, women's health or moms, like, what do moms need? I don't know. Let's go talk to moms. And then we go talk to moms, and we discover, wow, breastfeeding is really hard, and going back to work is really hard, and pumping sucks. And it's just a lousy experience. It's, and then, and so the money's there to go fund this investigation. So it's like, not a lot of money, but it's a small team. And then we'll do development, and then, we'll create a product like this. This is the first wearable breast pump for moms. It's a company. It's sort of getting washed out by the light here, but it's a company called Willow. And so we have funding all the way through to finding a CEO, filing the patents, proving proof of concept, usually in patients or with people. So we had already demonstrated that we could reduce the concept of a pump down to something that could fit in a bra. And we had demonstrated that we can actually, it can work and function. But we hadn't built it into a company yet, but we basically had, we looked at the regulatory pathway, did the modeling on the market, showed that it was a reasonably sized company for an investment from an NEA, who's our partner. And, there you go. And then we raise our first Series A, and, that's when we bring in other venture dollars. But it's a full-fledged, high quality company with the right leadership and all the fundamentals put behind it. And if we can't get the fundamentals together, like if we can't get a good patent or there's an issue, we don't do it. I mean, so we have the money to be able to say, nope, can't do it. All right, let's try something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you look at a consumer wearable technology like that, I think that it eliminates some of the challenges with the clinical approval process, which is addressed in the biodesign process. But it seems to me like the two biggest pitfalls that we had, one was in workflow and the other was supply chain. So really nothing to do with the technology, whether it works, whether it would be adopted by the patient, more about whether the surgeon would actually use it, because it's a new device and they have to change their behavior. Right. And then can we convince supply chain to include it in the SKUs within the health system?
Right.
So how are you working through that? Because and maybe I'm wrong, but those seem to have been the biggest challenges for us in getting new devices to market.
Right. Well, you're raising a real issue. And what I would say is that gets addressed in the need finding process. We try to identify all the stakeholders and figure out what do we need to make all of them win. So it isn't just a clinical outcome. It's actually how do we the payers win? How do the hospital staff? How does the physician win? What are all of the combined goals? That's not to say that we don't often. Every time you have a disruptive technology, there's always people who are attached to the existing system, and even if it's better for them to change, they resist change. So it's not like this makes everything easy, and you still fight the battles with, payers and so on, even if you did the analysis and it's going to save them money, but they don't believe you because anything new gets a no and that type of stuff. Got to work through all those things. But we do the homework, and we know that if we are successful and the technology delivers on the clinical outcome, that all those other things will be addressed. And it makes it just a little bit easier. It also gives us more confidence to fight the battle. I think when you're going up against it and you haven't done that up front, there may be a wavering amount of confidence that, maybe this actually isn't going to fit, but when we do diligently evaluate those aspects of getting a product, into use. And so we have an answer, and that carries us through even some of those dark days when, it feels like we're never going to get coverage and no one's ever going to use this. I mean, I can, this product right here, that's the UroLift, the NeoTrack UroLift system that we created. We had many years of challenges, all sorts of challenges. We had a huge regulatory delay. This was in a tough time in regulation, in the United States for medical devices, really tough situation. Device didn't change at all during that time. It was just a mindset on behalf of FDA. Thankfully, that changed and allowed this to get to patients. And now it's a massive opportunity in changing people's lives and helping people avoid surgery and complications.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about that? I mean, what was the mind shift that the FDA had? I mean, did you get additional patient data that allowed them to conclude differently, or?
I think, and this is something we're going to do here at Biodesign too. I mean, we're going to get involved with health tech innovation policy. And I'll frame that out a little bit to say that, there's a number of policies that scan everything from regulatory reimbursement, but also tax policies, socioeconomic policies, fiscal policies, et cetera, that, lawmakers, policymakers make decisions on all the time. But I don't think that there's as much insight as to how those actually impact the very important industry of, health tech, which just saved the world. I mean, COVID vaccines are here because there was all the appropriate funding and momentum and talent and energy and all of that to bring some amazing ideas forward that have been really worked on for the last 20 years. And thank God, we did that. So let's not ruin the golden goose. Yeah. So back to your question about what changed was, myself and a number of colleagues really dug in, and we really tried to show FDA how there are various structural and sort of, I'd say, mindset challenges with the way that regulation was being deployed on the medical device industry in particular, that was really squelching innovation and preventing important products to proceed. In this particular example, we had a reviewer that, this thing basically delivers a suture to the prostate. I mean, it's a very, very simple idea. We're literally stitching the prostate to itself. That's it. I mean, the prostate's squeezing down on the urethra. It's a spongy gland. We want to release the pressure on the urethra, so we push it up and we stitch it to itself, opening up the lumen. I mean, it's like, it's a simple idea. Yeah. Super simple, it's just basically a stitch. And we did have a reviewer that believed was concerned that sutures might cause cancer in the prostate. Why? Because prostates get cancer, and it's a foreign body, I guess. And foreign bodies can cause chronic inflammation, and maybe chronic inflammation can lead to cancer or something like that. But they basically wanted us to prove that, it didn't cause cancer, which, there's been a lot of experience with suture all over the body, even sutures that do not decompose. And, it was an impossible task. I mean, imagine trying to prove something doesn't cause cancer like that. I mean, it's like, anyway, we eventually prevailed and were able to proceed. And now, it's a great technology used in, thousands of doctors' offices every day.
Yeah, and that's obviously really rewarding. You talked about COVID and, the impact the pandemic's had. I know a lot of my investment friends have gone all in on telehealth, telemedicine. It is one of the silver linings, I think, and that, like you said, 20 years of work in digital health, and all of a sudden overnight you get reimbursed for it, and that was the biggest challenge in investing in that.
Right.
With devices and probably more around remote patient monitoring, are you seeing a lot of changes and a lot of momentum in those areas?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think in a way, this is one of the silver linings of the pandemic, is that it's actually pushed forward a number of digital and telehealth solutions that we realize, hey, yeah, actually we can do good care this way. And it does deserve to be reimbursed. And, let's do more of this. It's actually more efficient and saves us money. And it's more convenient, and people will access healthcare when they need it, as opposed to waiting until it's too late. And all these reasons why it makes sense that, many people have been saying for many years, but, it took a pandemic to sort of push us to realize that we have to use it. And now I think we're going to see the benefits of it. And I definitely think, all the futurists that were, have predicted that most care, unless, there really is a physical exam or some surgery needed or some procedure, is probably going to be done via telehealth. And it's going to be very efficient and fast. And do
Well,
it.
what do you think? Is it 80% of primary care can be delivered remotely?
I believe that. I believe that figure.
And if we're, if we're a society where men especially don't go see a physician for a regular checkup, if there's a way to, get that, I mean, that moves the needle in wellness care as opposed to healthcare. And we're kind of easing into a diversity inclusion discussion that is really important to TEDCO. And, what are we focused on? And I think telehealth is a great example. Remote healthcare is a great example, whether it's urban or rural, where you're providing access to patients with these new technologies. Does that work into the equation in any of the three hats? I know you wear more than that, but the three major hats that you wear, does that come into play?
Totally. I mean, we have both an internally focused diversity effort as well as a externally focused diversity effort that we partner with the Fogarty Innovation Group to do. That one's called DXD, Diversity by Doing. And the one internally is really, sort of really looking at our fellowship and who do we reach out to and how do we reach out to them and where, what sort of filters might we have unconsciously had in the past. And, I can say that it's instantly made a difference over the last couple of years. We're seeing a much more diverse fellowship group. And really it's a campus-wide effort across here at Stanford. But even in my work at ExploraMed, I mean, I feel proud that I'm one of the, when I was a general partner, I had the highest percentage of female CEOs in my companies, and female founders and co-founders. And so it's, I think it's time. And it's okay to put an extra emphasis on this, because we need to sort of open up that aperture more, because I think it brings better solutions forward. Having a more diverse group brings other ideas, other perspectives that really create an inclusive culture that streams through to the products that get delivered and access for patients. So yeah, it's a very important thing for us. And we have, systemically adopted it so that we can make it a part of what we do.
And that diversity by doing was something that really jumped out at me. I don't know. I just connected the dots in my head about how that really affects change. But maybe you can, drill down on that a little bit more. It seems to me like it's just like, just walk the walk. I mean, it's what needs to be done. Just diversity by doing. So
yeah, I mean, exactly. And there's several facets. We have a fantastic leader of that program, Ingrid Ellerby, who has a very thoughtful, like sort of 5-point program where, it's a combination of creating resources and support for companies that will, think more broadly about their internships, and sort of look at all the levels at which, people can be pulled into these companies. And so really the focus is companies and trying to create programs for them and support for them so that this is something that they can sort of adopt in their organizations. So it's really good. Mentors is a big piece of it, right? I mean, get like I think about you too, probably, Jack. I mean, you probably have had some great mentors that helped you where you get to where you are. And that's access to mentors is huge. I mean, it's life changing. Was certainly for me. I think my mentors, John Nira and some of the Bob Anderson, et cetera. So those guys were went out of their way to give me a little bit extra time, point me in the right direction, keep me from making too many mistakes, even though some I had to make myself, even though they told me that there was going to be a mistake. I just did it anyway.
Yeah, and maybe with you at Stanford, maybe you can point me in the right direction. At my age, I think back at how many mentors really wanted to mentor me, and I just refused to be mentored. And there's got to be some body of knowledge about, if you want to be mentored, this is the behavior to have. Don't dismiss things out of hand. I mean, I could write a book about how not to be mentored, but so if you run across anything, send me an email.
I'll let you know. Well, I also am a big believer in that. Like, there's no greater lesson to learn than the mistakes you make yourself. So I often caveat when I'm giving advice. I'm like, look, you can go do this, and boy, are you going to learn. Like, you could listen to me and not do this and avoid this, but I don't really recommend it. But then they go and do it anyway. I was like, well,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you caught in the New York Times last weekend, there was an interview with Snoop Dogg about, his entrepreneurial bent and things like, and they said, how do you find the right people to surround you? And he says, by surrounding yourself with people you shouldn't be surrounded by. And, he's like, I had a lot of investors early on that I just look at them now, and I now I have the profile of what I don't want. Right. So, maybe that's how we just get, kicked around enough that, we get there.
That's a way to do it.
Yeah, it's
not the most efficient way.
No, I just wonder where I'd be if I had listened, I guess. But
yeah.
So I guess, last question for you. We're here in Maryland. Our focus is on, something that, is really important to the taxpayers of Maryland, which is, job growth, company growth. The investment thesis that we have are wrapped around that. But you've got companies, I know you've got one in, Vesper in Pennsylvania, so you're not restricted to geography. We provide access to the accelerators, to early capital, to, licensing great technologies from great universities. What can we do to be helpful to the initiatives that you're involved in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we should talk. I mean, there's a lot of ways. I mean, certainly if there's an interest in getting involved in, I mean, as you can imagine, Stanford just creates so many people who are innovative and innovations that might be deserving of being startups. And, we're still, many of them do look for early stage capital, that risk capital, which is so hard to find. It's out there, but it is so hard to find. So programs that really help get those. I'm lucky at ExploraMed. I've got the capital to go do the diligence. I've got the capital to make sure I got a full regulatory, clinical, et cetera, IP filed, get the right, leadership. I mean, that's that model, right? It's great, but not everyone has a, several $1 million pool that they can draw from to make sure they do all the questions and get them answered before you go to a high quality investor. So, fuel for that effort for deserving projects and people would be wonderful. And, happy to
Yeah.
continue the dialogue on that. And certainly, I mean, I think what you're doing is so important. It's funny that both of us have found our way back into public service, so I think it speaks to your, your passion that brought you to the Cleveland Clinic in the first place, just an impact on people's lives and improving healthcare. So yeah, I mean,
Well, it was
a good place to do it.
in your bio, or in the updated bio, it said like Cincinnatus returning. Well, I had to look that up. I was like, I'm not a brainiac, so I needed to look up who Cincinnatus was. But I think they're right. And I think in closing, I really do appreciate all the work that you're doing. I think that you move the needle in healthcare. You've helped me out tremendously over the past several years, as is NEA, and as has Stanford. I walked into their doors 15 years ago and said, how do you guys do innovation, when I was at University of Michigan? You guys are very, very helpful. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we find ways to continue to work together.
Thank you.
So thanks, Josh. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you
All
too.
right, take care.